Ty Gibbs will jump up to the Cup Series full-time in 2023 with Joe Gibbs Racing, and Ryan Preece might still be headed to Trackhouse Racing driving the 41 car in 2023. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into this really quickly. We're going to start off with Eric Moses. As announced earlier this evening, that Eric Moses has been hired by the Fiesta Bull as the CEO. This means that he will not be returning as president and GM of National Super Speedway. Eric Moses has been president and GM of National Super Speedway for the last couple of years, and he's done a really good job to keep the track flow. They've had really good attendance and a lot of great racing as well at the racetrack. But really major congratulations to Eric Moses that he's been hired. I cannot wait to see what he has in store for the Fiesta Bull, and I think he's going to do a really excellent job helping that out. I'm looking forward to see what he's got in store at the Fiesta Bull. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the NHRA. Kelly Crandall tweeted a couple days ago the 2022 NHRA champions. So, for Funny Car, it was Ron Capps for the second time. For Top Fuel, it was Brittany Forrest. For Pro Stock, it was Erica Enders, I believe, for the 5th time. And for Pro Stock Motorcycle, it was Matt Smith for the 6th time. Major congratulations to all 4 champions of their respective series. The NHRA is a series that is continuing to grow and develop, and amazing to see all 4 of these people champions of the NHRA. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Coleman Pressley. As over the weekend, Coleman Pressley won the Fall Brawl at Hickory Speedway. Something very interesting to note, his spotter was Joey Logano. What's very interesting is Coleman Pressley is normally Joey Logano's spotter in the Cup Series, but now he gets to win a race, and Joey Logano got the spot for him. So you kind of got to see a little bit of matching up in different mix-ups for the race. It's really cool to see Coleman Pressley win. He hasn't really raced so much in the last few years, so to see Coleman Pressley win at Hickory was amazing to see. I hope this is not the end for him, because there's been some rumors that this could be the end for Coleman Pressley. If it is, congratulations on a great career, and hope you can help and go and continue help Joe Logano be a great driver in the series in 2023, and maybe help him out try to win the championship and cup for the 2nd year in a row. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about 3F Racing. As it was reported earlier this evening, that 3F Racing is going to be entering the late model race this upcoming weekend at Florence Speedway for the South Carolina 400. They will have Christopher Tate, who is a development group driver and a late model driver, driving the 3F Racing organization. 3F Racing has been a very interesting team. There's been a lot of rumors and rumors about their future. They were supposed to make their debut in 2022, but now they'll be attempting to make their debut in 2023. Christopher Tate hopefully can do a really good job in the late model event at Florence Speedway. Dale Jr. will be racing in that event, so it's really exciting to see. I cannot wait to see what they have in store, and amazing to see if 3F Racing will be entering the late model race at Florence. I'm really looking forward to that for sure. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Alfa Romeo. As after the F1 race in Sao Paulo, the Sao Paulo Grand Prix at Interlagos, it was reported by Chris Manlin, who does a lot of good reporting for Formula 1, that Alfa Romeo has been fined $1,000 for having a team member close to the path of a Haas car. Now, this member is someone who was not authorized, I believe, to go to pit road, and he already went over there anyways, and it could have affected Haas car, which is very, very dangerous. Really dangerous behavior, in my honest opinion, and glad to see that there were penalties handed out. I understand sometimes those penalties can be controversial. You can't have members getting over the wall and causing issues, because it could have been very, very dangerous. So, interesting they penalize them, but in my opinion, I think it's a great decision that they went ahead and decided to penalize them. But you can't have people going over the wall that are not authorized to go over the wall. I think that's a great decision they kind of made there. I know it's controversial to say, but I think it was a great decision in my opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Cheddars. As it was revealed on Saturday that Cheddars will not be sponsoring Tyler Reddick in 2023 at 2311 Racing. Cheddars has been a partner of Tyler Reddick's for the last 3 years, but I think they're also a major partner of Richard Childress Racing. So it's not a major shock and surprise right there. They've had a lot of success with Tyler Reddick. I don't know if they've won any races in Cup, but they've done great things at Reddick and have been really good, especially with the croissants. The big question is, what are they going to be sponsoring? Are they staying with Richard Childress Racing, or are they getting out of the sport? My assumption is that they're going to be staying in the sport in 2023 and sponsoring Kyle Busch. They've been a part of RCR even before Tyler Reddick got over to the team, and I would expect that they are going to sponsor Kyle Busch in 2023. There's other sponsors that are willing to work with Kyle Busch. Fling's been in the rumblings and conversations. Hot Wheels has been in the rumbling and the conversations, and we could see more sponsors show up in the not-distant future to sponsor Kyle Busch, but it wouldn't shock and surprise me if Cheddar's is sponsoring Kyle Busch in 2023. We'll probably get word on that in the not-so-distant future in regards to who will be sponsoring Kyle Busch, but I think Cheddar's will be a very big possibility of sponsoring Kyle Busch in 2023. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Nico Hulkenberg. As reported a few days ago, that Nico Hulkenberg is expected to be announced here, I think, later this day when you're watching this, that he is expected to be driving full-time for Haas F1 in 2023, replacing Mick Schumacher. This has been in the rumblings and rumors for the last years, and Nico Hulkenberg was expected to make a return to Formula 1. Now, Nico Hulkenberg has been in Formula 1 many, many times, but I think the reason they're going with Nico Hulkenberg to drive the Haas car is because, one, of his experience. They want to have a teammate, Ken Madison, who has a lot of experience. And this is no disrespect to Mick Schumacher, because I think Mick Schumacher's done okay this year with Haas, and I will say Haas has been better this year than they were in 2021, but I think that Mick Schumacher should have stepped up the plate a lot more and probably wouldn't have been able to keep the ride. I have no clue where Mick Schumacher is going to be in 2023. He might stick around and try to go to different series at some point, who knows. But at this point, Mick Schumacher's probably not going there. But I think with that experience that Nico really has, I think that's going to play a factor and a big reason why they've gone ahead and signed him to drive full-time. Decision expected later today, and good to see that he will be full-time. Hopefully he does really, really good with Haas F1. It's a shame that Mick Schumacher, the son of Michael Schumacher, will not be racing in Formula 1 likely next year with this big announcement, but we'll have to wait and see when this does get officially out. It's not confirmed, but it's expected to happen, and we should be hearing about this story here in the not-so-distant future. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, is we're going to talk about Trackhouse Racing. Now, a couple days ago, it was reported by Adam Stern, and according to him, Justin Marks wants to take Trackhouse into other forms of entertainment and develop a fan following like Ferraris. Ty Norris commented from their Adam Stern's tweet. He said, most visionaries I've been around are racing visionaries. He doesn't just think about the NASCAR garage. When I look at team owners and look at interesting organizations, Trackhouse Racing is an organization that I really think is setting itself up for a very bright future. They've got two drivers who I think are becoming stars in the sport. Daniel Suarez, who of course drives a 99 car, got his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at Sonoma. And Ross Chastain got 2 wins, made it to championship 4, had an incredible melon move, the hail, as we call it, the Hail Melon at Martinsville, and got a lot of social media attraction. Track has also indicated in the past as well they've been interested in running in different forms of racing, including maybe in IMSA, and also attempting to run the Indianapolis 500. Now, I don't know if they're going to run the Indy 500 in 2023 or not, but I think Trackhouse has a really bright future set in store for their organization long term. I would expect that they're going to have very similar performances in 2023 that they had in 2022. I think Suarez will improve, and I think Chastain will form about as well as he did in 2022. It's a very exciting time for your Trackhouse Racing fans, especially with Pitbull being there. I think his team is set up for a really, really bright future, and you have to definitely be excited for the future of Trackhouse long term, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the 2022 NASCAR schedule. Now, Adam Stern also reported a few days ago about the 2022 NASCAR schedule, and he took a quote from Steve Myers. And Steve Myers, who basically is the president of iRacing, he says the NASCAR leaders took bold chances with the schedule that not only worked, but forever changed the landscape of how and where they race. I'm excited for the future of the sport if they continue to not be afraid of change. In the last years, NASCAR has had a lot of bold and innovative changes in the sport. They've had a dirt race for the Cup Series. They're already going to have a street course race in 2023 at Chicago. They're talking about some other forms of racing, going to different other types of racing as well. They race in the LA Coliseum, and they've ventured out, did more road course racing, and tried to change up the schedule. They changed Atlanta into a mini super speedway. Even though I'm not a big fan of that, they were able to be innovative and change that up. I think the long-term future, when you look at NASCAR, there's already talk that 2024 could have a lot more innovative changes coming. Other types of forms of racing could be showing up, and I think there's a lot of things in the future that could be set up, including going to different countries. They've talked about going to different countries, and I think that'd be really, really cool to see for sure. Them can think outside the box and go to different countries. It's very exciting to see for sure the future, and I think the 2023 schedule, actually 2024 schedule, will probably be a very many bold changes coming. It's a very exciting time. I cannot wait to see what happens long term. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Scott Zipadelli. As it was announced on Monday, that Scott Zipadelli will not be crew chiefing at Hattori Racing in 2023. Scott Zipadelli has been with Hattori Racing, I believe, since 2016 or 2017, and he's a veteran crew chief as well. He won the 2018 championship with Brett Moffitt as a crew chief and led many drivers to success, including Austin Hill, who got a bunch of wins with the team. Didn't win a championship, of course, but got a bunch of wins with the team. Now, Scott Zipadelli apparently has some big plans in store for the not-so-distant future. He'll probably be announcing those in the future. I think he probably got a really good job going into 2023, to be honest. He probably got a better job in Hattori, and I think he's ready to move back up to the Xfinity Series, because I think he has crew chief in the Xfinity Series before. He's had a lot of success at the team. The big question is who's going to be driving for the team, because we know that Chase Purdy, he's going to KBM next year. He won't be back, but they're planning to have 2 trucks next year. Will we get new crew chiefs? Who knows at this particular point, but it's disappointing he won't be returning, but I wish him the best of luck, and hopefully wherever he's going, he can do a really good job as a crew chief for whatever organization he's going to drive for in 2023. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Josh Bilicki. Now, Josh Bilicki put out a tweet earlier this evening and talked about some 2023 plans. Basically, he put a tweet out saying 2023 and had a eyeball emoji. This tells me that he is teasing his 2023 plans. Now, Josh Bilicki currently does not have his plans set, as he's not returning to Spire Motorsports in 2023. As we know that Ty Dillon and Corey LaJoie will be driving for Spire Motorsports heading into the 2023 season, as they expand to 2 full-time entries instead of 1 full-time entry and multiple drivers in the other car. Now, where could Josh Bilicki be going? He could be going back to the Xfinity Series next year. It's very possible. We do have Alpha Prime Racing. We don't know what the plans are outside of Ryan Ellis. He could be going full-time with Alpha Prime. He also be going back down to the Truck Series. Regardless of where Josh Bilicki goes in 2023, I hope he's able to find a really good opportunity with an organization, because I think Josh Bilicki does get the best out of his equipment. I know that he didn't have a lot of great runs at Spire, but I think the equipment mattered a lot more than anything. So I think that played a major factor in Josh Bilicki struggling in 2022. Like I said, wherever he ends up going, I wish him the best of luck and wish him a lot of success heading into 2023, and hopefully he'll be able to perform really, really well in 2023 wherever he gets to. We don't know exactly where he's going, but it sounds like his plans could be decided in the future. Hopefully, wherever he goes, he could be extremely successful with whatever organization he drives for. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about ARCA. As on, I believe it was on Friday, that the 2023 ARCA schedule has been officially revealed. They'll have the same number of races in 2023, and there's not many changes coming to the 2023 schedule. The season is going to kick off at Daytona in February 18th, followed by Phoenix on March 10th. Then about a month and a half later, they'll go to Talladega on April 22nd. After that, they'll go to Kansas on May 6th, and then they'll go to Charlotte on May 26th. After that, they'll go to Berlin Raceway on June 17th, and then a week later, they'll go to Elko Speedway on June 24th. After that, they'll go to Mid-Ohio on July the 7th, and then they'll go to Iowa Speedway on July the 15th. Then about a week later, they'll go to Pocono on July 21st, and then a few weeks later, they're going to go to Michigan on August the 4th. A week later, they'll go to IRP on August 11th, and then another week later, they're going to go to Watkins Glen on August 18th. 2 days later, they'll be racing in Springfield on August 20th, and then a week later, they'll be racing in Milwaukee on August 27th. That should be on the same day, I believe, as the NASCAR Cup Truck Series race at Milwaukee. Then they'll go to DuQuoin on September 3rd, and 5 days later, they'll go to Kansas on September the 8th. After that, they're going to go to Bristol on September 14th, then they go to Sam on September 30th, and finally, the last race of the season will take place at Toledo Speedway like it was in 2022. Not many changes happening in 2023. Again, not a major shock, though. ARCA did have some really high points in 2022, so hopefully in 2023 they can continue to increase the number of entries that are in their races. ARCA definitely has set themselves up for a little bit of a brighter future heading into 2023. And that is your ARCA schedule heading into 2023. There's obviously some things to be really excited for around ARCA. Hopefully things continue to improve and they can progress toward a very bright future heading into next year. There's good things going on. Hopefully they continue to get better heading into 2023. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Motorsports Games. Now, about a day or two ago, there was a report that came out. I can't remember from the exact guy's name, but it was reported from Motorsports Games that the board of directors that runs the board of directors for Motorsports Games have resigned after a disagreement took place. There's only one or two higher-ups that remain at the board of directors, but most of them have basically quit. One of the big things to know is that Motorsports Games, for many of you who have not been paying attention, Motorsports Games is a company right now that seems like a sinking ship. This company's had a lot of problems. It's no secret that they release a very, very just not a good game, in my opinion. NASCAR 21 Ignition, to many people, is considered the worst NASCAR game to ever be released. When it was released, there's so many bugs, so many glitches, and just so many messes with the game. It sounds like to me that this is going to end any sort of possibility of NASCAR 23 coming out, and also the IndyCar game coming out next year, because there's supposed to be an IndyCar game that was supposed to be released in 2023 around, I believe, the Indianapolis 500 weekend. But now that does not seem like it's happening. And they only have till December 29th to get 500,000 shares, or they'll be kicked off the NASDAQ. It seems like the future of Motorsports Games is really uncertain at the moment. I've been really paying attention to this. I've been following this story, but I really haven't been able to talk about this. But there's just been a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that just is not good, in my opinion. And I think the future of Motorsports Games is really headed toward a massive negative direction. So it's really a shame. Hopefully someone can come in and develop a new game, because I don't think this is the end of console gaming, but console gaming feels very similar right now to where we were back in 2007 through 2010 or 2008, 2010, where we just didn't have a lot of good games come out, and it took a few years for NASCAR to come out. We're kind of getting back to that area, and I really do not like that we're headed toward that direction in gaming right now. I just think things are not going well right now, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Denny Hamlin. Now, earlier tonight, basically, you had the Brian France episode get revealed of the Dale Jr. download. And Denny Hamlin had a tweet come out basically saying we should have been a little more thankful for Brian France, even though he had a lot of stuff happen behind the scenes. He should be a little more thankful. There was a tweet that Denny Hamlin then tweeted later, quote tweeting, I believe, a buddy of mine, Bama Buddy, well, not a buddy of mine, but a guy named Bama Buddy on Twitter. He basically said that, talk about the championship and stuff. Denny Hamlin says the championship 4 is great, but needs to be 3 races for the championship 4, and there needs to be a larger sample size than 1 race, and also expands that there should be 12 races in the playoffs. I 100% will agree with most of it, but there's one thing I will disagree with. Disagreeing with Denny Hamlin on is basically the fact that he's saying we should have a 12-race playoffs. I disagree. I think we should decrease the playoffs, in my opinion, down to a 7-race playoffs, or maybe a 6-race playoffs for that matter, to where we have 12 cars in the playoffs. 16 cars is way too many in the playoffs, in my opinion. But I will agree with them on one thing. I think the fact that 1 race decides the championship is ridiculous. If the championship 4 was 3 races, and you saw the championship race, if you had 3 races to determine the champion without people basically advancing, I think that would work out a lot better for NASCAR, in my opinion. I think more people would tune in and watch. I think the big problem right now is the fact you have 1 race to decide the championship, and people don't want to sit there and watch a 1-race championship where basically there's too many outside factors that could really play a major factor. That's what I agree with Denny Hamlin on, is basically that they need to cut it down. But I will agree, there needs to be a cut down to the playoffs. I think the playoffs are way too long. The season needs to be cut a little bit shorter. You can still keep the 36 races, but make the season a little bit shorter as possible. But what I will say is that I will agree with Denny Hamlin on there probably should be 3 races in the final round. That's where I will agree with him, and I agree with him on that fact, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the 2023 Daytona 500. Now, we haven't talked much about the 2023 Daytona 500 on this channel, except with some of the announcements and confirmations. Peter Strada today, who basically is the co-owner of TSJ Sports with Noah Lewis, he put out a really strong article today about the 2023 Daytona 500 and what we could expect for the 2023 Daytona 500. In this article, he basically reports that we could see around 42 to 44 cars entering in the 2023 Daytona 500. Obviously, there could be more. MBM could enter 2 cars as possible in 2023 for the Daytona 500. Team Haysbergs are probably going to run 1. It probably could run a 2nd car in the Daytona 500 in 2023. Julio Castroneves has also been promised a ride in the Daytona 500. And then, of course, you have Kurt Busch, who could also run the Daytona 500 as well in a 3rd 2311 racing car. At this particular point, there could see a lot more entries than what we initially thought. We could see maybe 45 to 46 cars. Who knows at this point? Obviously, I'll probably talk more about Daytona 500 intros in the long-term future on this channel. But I'll say is this, the Daytona 500 2023, the fact we have to see Jimmy Johnson and Julio Castroneves fighting against each other is going to be really, really fun. And I think it's really, really exciting for sure. If you're a fan of Daytona 500 stuff, there's more of those details probably coming soon. And it's really, really exciting. So we can't wait to see what happens. And we'll talk more about the Daytona 500 for 2023 in the long-term future on the channel as we get closer to the 2023 season. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Petty GMS Motorsports. This is something I've not seen a lot of people really talk about except a couple YouTubers. One of the things that I saw that kind of went under the radar is based on an article that came out. I think it was Zach Albert who wrote this article. And he based reports that Petty GMS may have more drivers that could fill the seat of the 3rd Petty car. Now, obviously, Jimmy Johnson, who's now a co-owner of the organization, he'll be joining the team and will run a select few races in 2023. Probably run 8 to 10 races. Of course, you know that Jimmy Johnson will be driving in the Daytona 500 2023. He's indicated that he's wanted to run the Chicago Street Course in North Wilkesboro and a couple other races. But the big question is, who could be driving this car as well? Obviously, you have some drivers like maybe if they get someone else in that Rick Ware, maybe they could bring a driver like Joey Hand over. But I like the fact that we're seeing more teams that are willing to run more entries in these races. You're going to have a lot more times next year in 2023 where I think you're going to see more full-time fields with 40 cars in. Maybe some races outside of the super speedways where you have guys probably failing to qualify. And I think it's going to make those races a lot more interesting. I love the fact that we're seeing more entries show up. We could get legendary drivers like a Kimi Räikkönen if he can't go to Trackhouse and run there. We get other drivers like a Logan Seavey, perhaps. Maybe other guys who are really, really talented, maybe from the IndyCar side of things, the Formula 1 side of things, could come over to Petty GMS. Maybe Jimmy Johnson brings over Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden. Guys in the Chevy program in IndyCar could come over and race. Whatever the plans are, though, I'm really excited for the future, and I think things are looking up. And whatever happens at Petty GMS, I think we should all be really, really excited about that. And there's some things that could be happening at Petty GMS. Maybe more than 8 to 10 races, we'll see the 3rd Petty GMS car, and maybe more drivers will show up. We'll wait to see what happens, but it sounds like things could be headed toward a very interesting future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Hailie Deegan. Now, I've talked about Hailie Deegan quite a bit on this channel. We've got 2 reports coming from this Bob Pockrass article that came out on Monday. And one of the big key points was about Hailie Deegan. He kind of talks about her future just a little bit. Now, there are a few big possibilities around Hailie Deegan because Hailie Deegan will not be returning to DJR Racing in 2023, as DJR Racing will be rebranding to Toyota, and they also will be rebranding their name to Tricon Garage. And they'll be switching, like I said, over to Toyota in 2023, which means Hailie Deegan will be looking for a ride. Obviously, Hailie Deegan could possibly return to the truck series and drive maybe for Front Row Motorsports in his 2nd truck. But I don't think that's going to happen. So in this report, there's 2 potential rides that she could drive in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and Ford wants to keep her in there. You've got SS Greenlight Racing, which is an organization that she has ran for in her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut, which had a major SHR alliance. She ended up finishing 13th in her NASCAR Xfinity Series debut, which is really impressive. Yes, it was a full SHR car, but she did a very, very good job in that race. And I can see her driving the 07 car or maybe the 08 car. Another option he did not mention in this article is RSS Racing. We don't know the plans for RSS Racing, but they do have a technical alliance with Stewart Haas Racing. We know that Ryan Sieg will be driving the 39, but of course they do have to figure out what's going to happen with Kyle C, CJ McLaughlin, and other drivers who drive for RSS Racing. But that could be an option for Hailie Deegan. But the other option, I think the most likely option, is a 2nd Stewart Haas Racing Xfinity Series car. We'll talk about the other driver here who will be back in that team next year in just a second. But Hailie Deegan, I think, will be in a 2nd Stewart Haas Racing Xfinity Series car. Here's why I think she will be in that car. Ford really wants to keep her around, and she's got Monster Energy backing. Ford is very committed to her, and I think that they're going to put her in that car. Hailie Deegan, I think, deserves the opportunity to drive in a really fast car, and I think she also deserves to be promoted to the Xfinity Series as well. She's not learning in the Truck Series. We've seen drivers come from the Truck Series that weren't as good in trucks. Look at Harrison Burton, Noah Gragson, for example, and do really well in Xfinity. And Jimmy Johnson didn't do much trucks at all. And guess what goes to Xfinity? Did okay there, and what goes to Cup when he becomes 7-time champion. Ty Gibbs basically skipped from ARCA all the way up to Xfinity and has been very successful, and now he's going Cup racing in 2023 on a full-time basis. I think Hailie Deegan will do better in Xfinity. Now, I'm not comparing her to those drivers, but I'm saying that some drivers have done better racing in Xfinity than they've done racing in trucks. And I think she will be a driver that does better, in my honest opinion. I think she will do better, especially in a more competitive car. DJR in trucks, while Ryan Preece did a great job at that team was not always fantastic, and Tanner Gray also struggled with that team as well. But she's also still newer to the stock car racing as well. She's only, in her third or fourth year racing in stock cars, so you got to give her a little bit of time. And she's still a young driver who's got time. You have to remember that Hailie Deegan is only 21 years old. We do have to give her a little bit of time to try to do the best she can. That being said, though, I think she'll be full-time at SHR and Xfinity, and I think she'll be driving for Stewart Haas Racing Xfinity Series program in 2023, in my opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about Riley Herbst. As was announced earlier today, that Riley Herbst will be returning to Stewart Haas Racing in 2023 and will once again drive the number 98 car, with Monster Energy having a majority of the sponsorship in 2023. This is not a major shock or surprise. Riley Herbst has been part of Stewart Haas Racing now for the last 2 seasons, and he has a big commitment with Monster Energy, and Ford is committed to Riley Herbst as well. That being said, I'm going to be for real about Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst has not done fantastic. Has he done absolutely terrible? No, absolutely not. Very similar to his company's name, Terrible Herbst. I don't think he's been terrible, but you're in a Stewart Haas Racing Xfinity Series car, and you are expected to perform a lot better. Not to mention, he's been in his car this last 2 years, and Riley the numbers have been okay. He's had some good runs, no doubt about that, but you compare that with Chase Briscoe and Cole Custer did prior. And both those drivers won races with the team. Cole Custer had a 7 or 8 win year with Stewart Haas Racing in 2019. And then, of course, you had basically another driver who drove the team, of course, that being Chase Briscoe, who got 9 wins in 2020. Now, do I think Stewart Haas Racing's Xfinity Series program is as good as it was in 2020? No, I don't think so. But you got to start performing if you're in your third year with the team. Not to mention, Riley Herbst, he's young. He's got time to improve. But he is going to be 24 in 2023. And he's been in NASCAR now for about 4 or 5 years. He didn't do much in ARCA. He got some good runs and won 1 or 2 races. Ty Gibbs goes in that car and goes on, wins a championship, and does a great job with that team. I've got to start seeing something from Riley Herbst, which I think I will. In 2023, I think he gets a win or 2. I think he's going to improve in 2023. I think the fact that you won't have Noah Gragson, Ty Gibbs, or Allmendinger full-time in Xfinity, I think that's going to play a major factor in helping Riley Herbst really improve. He's got to start improving, which I think he will. I think he's going to do a lot better. That being said, though, he needs to start improving in 2023, and hopefully he will be able to do that. Richard Boswell's a great crew chief. He's done a good job helping out drivers, and I thought he'd go up with Chase Briscoe, but I think that we're going to see Riley Herbst hopefully improve next year and show something. You do have a weaker Xfinity Series field, and hopefully whatever he does, he can do a really good job having some good runs next year in 2023 with Stewart Haas Racing. But he's got good commitments and sponsors, and that's why he's still in this 98 car. There's probably drivers that deserve this ride more, quote-unquote, Ryan Preece, but I'll digress. Anyway, I think that Riley Herbst, he's got the ride for the next year or 2. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon, but he'll be back with Stewart Haas Racing in the 2023 season. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode, as it was just confirmed this morning that Ryan Preece will officially jump up to the Cup Series in 2023 on a full-time basis. That's right, Ryan Preece is going to drive the 41 car for Stewart Haas Racing heading into 2023. Absolutely massive, massive news for Ryan Preece if you're a Ryan Preece fan. Ryan Preece was a reserve driver for Stewart Haas Racing for last year in 2022, where he drove for DJR Racing, Rickwell Racing, and a couple races with BG McLeod Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. In the Truck Series, he scored 2 wins at National, both of them from 2021 and 2022, and is basically only his worst finish was 11th position, so he did very, very well. There have been rumors for the last 2 weeks. It was likely he was going to be taking over the 41 car. First of all, I think this is a really, really good decision for Ryan Preece's career, and I'll explain why. I think Ryan Preece is overall a much better driver than Cole Custer currently at the moment, and I think that he will be a more competitive driver in that number 41 car in 2023, which makes me very, very excited. If you're a fan of Ryan Preece, and a lot of people are, including myself, I've been wanting this guy to have a full-time opportunity in a competitive car in the Cup Series, and this will be the most competitive ride he's ever had in Cup. He also returns to the Cup Series in 2023 after not racing in the Cup Series in 2022 on a full-time basis, as he left JTJ after 2021. Now he gets an opportunity to be in a very competitive car. This is also really the last major silly season domino that really needs to fall, because again, with him getting to that 41 car, this is the last major domino that is going to have to fall. But I'm very excited about this. Expectations, I think, for Ryan Preece going to 2023. I think Ryan Preece is going to be a playoff contender. I really think he is. He's a super, super competitive individual, and I think that he will be a legitimate threat to go out there and contend for a championship. Not a championship, but I think he will be the best driver to perform in that 41 car since Kurt Busch. Daniel Suarez wasn't fantastic in the 41 car, but he nearly made the playoffs. Cole Custer, and let's just talk about Cole Custer, he just didn't perform up to the standards if you're going to be in a really, really strong car. And I'm also shocked he's out of that 41 car because of sponsorship funding and his dad being executive. But I guess they looked at the performance of Cole Custer and just didn't really see anything magical coming from Cole Custer. I think this is a fantastic decision, though. They put Ryan Preece in the 41 car. I don't think Ryan is going to let the team down. I do think, though, in 2024, it is possible that Ryan Preece could move away from the 41 car and move over to 2024. They move Preece from the 41 car over maybe to the 4 car in 2024 when Kevin Harvick retires. And I think a big reason why they're moving him up to the 41 car is mainly because of the fact that Ryan Preece does have the pot, is basically like a Kevin Harvick incorporated driver, and also Kevin Harvick retired at the end of 2023. So I think there's a chance that Custer could come back there. Now let's talk about Cole Custer. What's happening to Cole Custer? Well, Cole Custer is going to drive a second NASCAR Xfinity Series car. Now, while they've not announced the number, exactly the number he's going to run, I likely think that he'll be driving the 00 car, since that's the number he drove in Xfinity Series from 2017 to 2019. I think this is actually a really good decision for Cole Custer, and I think that he will do a lot better in Xfinity Series than he did in the Cup Series. Just look at his select Xfinity Series starts. He drove for SS Greenlight Racing and did an amazing job, and I think he'll be a really good driver, to kind of be a little more of a coach. Yes, he's like only a year or two older, but I think he's going to be someone that really can help out Riley Herbst become a much better driver, who, of course, will be driving the 98 car once again in 2023. Overall, think both. This actually is going to be a win-win for both of the organizations. So going into next year, this is Haas Racing's lineup. So in 2023, you're going to have Kevin Harvick driving the 4, Eric Almirola in the 10. You're going to have Chase Briscoe in the 14, and then you're going to have Ryan Preece in the 41. Then it likely will be the 00 for Cole Custer, and then you'll have it in the 41 in the 98 car, Riley Herbst. Now, the other big question is what happens to Hailie Deegan now? I would think Hailie Deegan would go to SS Greenlight Racing. They're trying to figure out her ride. I think that's where she'll end up in 2023. It's a shame that won't put her in the SHR program, but I think it's a better decision to put Custer in Haas Racing Xfinity Series program than Hailie Deegan. Just because of the fact that basically Cole Custer does have that experience in Cup. He's got a few years of Cup Series experience, and I think that he'll come back stronger. I know sometimes it can be negative to move guys down from the Cup Series back down to the Xfinity, but sometimes those drivers tend to do a very, very good and a really, really solid job. At the end of the day, I'm super excited for Ryan Preece to have this opportunity. I think he's going to do an excellent and amazing job, and I cannot wait to see what Ryan, again, going back to talk about Ryan Preece for a minute, this guy is a guy who I think has been one of the most underrated drivers in NASCAR the last few seasons. You just look at the performance that Ryan Preece has generally had as a driver in this series, and I think he's done such a good job. I really think he has. He's outperforming equipment every time he gets in. I remember when he drove for JD Motorsports, and he was doing really good in those cars. Then he drove for Joe Gibbs Racing in select starts and never really finished worse than second in any of the select starts in 2017. Granted, he got into it with Elliott Sadler, but Elliott Sadler was really at fault at Homestead. And then, of course, there were other times where he ran great. You look at 2018 at Bristol where he went to go out there and get the victory. I just think it's so phenomenal to see that you're going to have a guy like Ryan Preece going full-time, and I think this is massive. So outside of this, what rides are going to be left? I think there's only a few rides left available now. I mean, Rick Ware Racing will probably have that part-time car in 2023, and then the 51 car, and then probably the 78 car, really the last entries that do need to be confirmed. But I'm so excited for Ryan Preece. I think this is a fantastic decision overall, and I think this is a great. I think both sides generally are going to win in this situation. I think the 41 car will be a competitor. I don't know if we'll make the playoffs, but I think they'll contend for the playoffs in 2023. And I think that Cole Custer is actually going to be a legitimate championship contender. I think Cole will have a chance of winning quite a few races in 2023, where I think he'll get at least probably 3 to 4 victories. I think he's still going to have to go up against really talented drivers like Chandler Smith. But I think many people are going to have him and Chandler Smith, other drivers like from Junior Motorsports Camp. But I think that you're going to have to watch for him next year, as I think Preece is going to absolutely be a threat in 2023, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're talking about Ty Gibbs. Now, earlier today or yesterday when you're watching this video, I talked about this on the channel, but it's officially confirmed that Ty Gibbs will be officially jumping up to the Cup Series full-time in 2023 with Joe Gibbs Racing. Now, that right there is what we expected. What we did not expect is that he'll be driving the number 54 car and not the number 18 car in 2023. That is a big change. Obviously, the another big thing is who will be the crew chief. It'll be Chris Gale. Now, sponsorship and all the other stuff has not been announced at this time, but I think Monster Energy and other sponsors you had in Xfinity Series will probably be jumping up with sponsor him in 2023. Let's talk about the 18 car, because the 18 car is gone. This will be the first time in Joe Gibbs Racing history that they will not have the 18 car. And the first time at the season, I think the 18 will not be on a Cup Series car in the history of the Cup Series, which I find very interesting. Now, I think this is a really good decision overall. And I think the reason they're taking 18 car away is when you think of the 18 car, I think a lot of times you think of Kyle Busch or Bobby Labonte, who have been the big names in an 18 car. I think they're trying to create an identity, trying to create a new identity for Ty Gibbs in that number 54 car. I also look at that car. They're not basically taking away altogether. I think long-term they will go back to having the number 18 car. I think long-term they'll go back there. I think that number will place the 19 car whenever a driver like Sammy Smith maybe jumps up or John Hunter, because I think those are going to be the drivers driving in their NASCAR Xfinity Series program in 2023. But let's talk about Ty Gibbs a little bit. Ty Gibbs jumping up the Cup Series, like I said, is not a major shock and surprise. And while I think that there's some maturity and growth that needs to happen in 2023, I think he's absolutely earned the right. He is an ARCA champion, won the ARCA championship in 2021, and in 2022 had a very great year, had 7-win season, and also went on to win the Xfinity Series title after a really awesome race that he put on at Phoenix. He dominated that race, had a pretty good battle between Noah Gragson, him, and Justin Allgaier. It was a very, very clean battle. But the one thing Ty Gibbs will have to work on heading into 2023 is a maturity. There's points this year in 2022 where he didn't show that maturity, but I think that he will in 2023 be able to grow as a race car driver. But he didn't do fantastic in his select Cup starts either. His average finish in his Cup starts was around a 23rd place. And he only had one top 10 finish, and that was a 10th place at Michigan Speedway, where his teammate at the time, Bubba Wallace, nearly had a shot to win. Now, let's talk about expectations for Ty Gibbs heading into 2023. What are my expectations for Ty? I think Ty Gibbs is going to do a solid job. Not spectacular, but I think he's going to do a solid job. I think Ty Gibbs will barely squeak his way into the playoffs in 2023. I think he'll do better what Joey Logano did. He's a young driver. He's a young project who will probably do good. I don't think he wins a race, though. Honestly, I don't know if he'll win. I think it's tough to say if he'll win or not, because I don't know how great he's going to do. I think Chris Gale is going to do a good job and be a great guidance for Ty Gibbs heading into 2023. I really think he's going to be a great guidance, but I don't know how Ty will do if he can go out there and contend for victories. I think, again, having that new identity will make a lot of sense for Ty. I just don't know how well he's going to perform. You kind of have to look at him being a younger driver. He'll be 21 next. Starting at next year, he'll be 20. By the end of the year, he'll be 21 years of age. I think having that veteran presence of Chris Gale, though, work with him makes a lot of sense. And he's going to have a lot of pressure as a rookie going into next year. But I think long-term for Ty Gibbs, when you look at Ty Gibbs long-term, the guy has so much raw talent. When I look at him, he's won a lot of Xfinity races, won an ARCA championship, and he's won a lot of races that he has been a part of. And I think that he will, in the next few years, win a Cup Series championship. I think the rookie year will be a year of testing and skill, but he's going to have good mentorship, I think, from Denny Hamlin. I think Mark Truex Jr. will be a driver who could really mentor a driver like Ty Gibbs. And I even think Christopher Bell is still a young driver, but he also is a driver who has a lot of experience in Cup and racing as well, and he's almost 30 years old as well. Ty Gibbs is going to need that veteran presence that's really going to help him heading into 2023. I really think he's going to be able to find that veteran presence with the drivers that he'll be able to lean on heading into 2023. So my expectations are he makes the playoffs, but just barely. Don't know if he wins, but I think he barely just makes the playoffs. But if you're a Ty Gibbs fan, you definitely got to be really excited for heading into 2023. There's some good things happening for Ty, and this is something that's been expected for a long time. This really almost completes everything in Silly Season 2. Obviously, I talked a little bit about the Xfinity Series program because they're looking at the drivers for that. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, I would expect that you're going to see Sammy Smith in the 18, John Hunter in the 19, and probably a third car that's going to be the All-Star car with some of the Cup guys driving and some of the other guys driving as well. Joe Gibbs Racing, though, will need to be working toward their future, and Toyota will be looking toward their future, and Ty Gibbs could be that future guy. But it's also crazy to think about the 18 car. Let's talk about that for a second, too. The 18 car being out of the Cup Series is something I did not expect. That car is still come back. That 18 cars won championships with Bobby Labonte and Kyle Busch. Is won Daytona 500s, of course, with Dale Jarrett back in 1993. Their first one, of course, came in 1993 with the 18 car, and they've won some other races well with that number. So crazy to think that number is gone and change is coming as Ty Gibbs will be jumping up the Cup Series full-time in 2023. So that is today's shorter NASCAR news video and other motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Notifications on. It's be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as part of my Patreon as well. Links go to info over that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. What are your expectations for Ty Gibbs heading into 2023? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about the 41 car? Do you think it'll be Ryan Preece or Cole Custer driving that car in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're having another team preview dropping on the channel. I would either think it'd be 2311 Racing, another organization, and then Friday we could have another NASCAR news video or something else. The team preview is going to be dropping, and I have a major announcement that's going to be coming in regards to my future here in the not-so-distant future that I will be announcing here very, very soon that I think you're all going to really like. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.